What if the fate of the Ukraine war hinged on a single handshake behind Kremlin walls? As the clock ticks toward President Trump's explosive deadline, a smiling Putin greets America's envoy. But don't be fooled by the smiles. What happened in that closed-door meeting could reshape global power forever. Will Putin bend, or will the world be dragged into the next phase of unstoppable conflict? The truth lies just hours away. Russian President Vladimir Putin's unexpected meeting with U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff has sent shockwaves through global diplomatic circles, coming just as the clock winds down on President Donald Trump's ultimatum: end the war in Ukraine or face unprecedented economic retaliation. Behind the walls of the Kremlin, what unfolded was a tense 3-hour discussion marked by smiles, silence, and strategy, meeting that may determine the future of the Eastern European battlefield and global alliances. While the Kremlin has called the talks constructive, no formal statement has indicated a shift in Moscow's core demands. Russia remains firm. Ukraine must declare neutrality, NATO must halt its eastward push, and territories currently under Russian control must be internationally recognized as such. These are the pillars Putin refuses to abandon, despite economic isolation, continued battlefield losses, and now the looming threat of American-led secondary sanctions targeting Russian energy exports. As Witkoff arrived in Moscow, his appearance was carefully choreographed. Early morning footage showed him walking calmly through Zaryad Park with Kirill Dmitriev, a seasoned Russian negotiator involved in past Istanbul peace talks. That scene, while serene, masked the urgency beneath. The United States was now using its full economic arsenal to force Russia to the negotiating table. In Washington, President Trump has publicly expressed both hope and frustration. He claims that the window for diplomacy is rapidly closing and that the war, now well into its third year, is hurting not only Ukraine and Russia, but also the global economy. Trump has been vocal about what he sees as Putin's avoidable escalation and has warned that Russia's continued bombardment of Ukrainian civilian infrastructure will trigger severe penalties. Already, he has enacted doubled tariffs on Indian oil imports involving Russian crude, sending a chilling signal to other trade partners, including China. Trump's rhetoric has become increasingly aggressive. He has stated that the U.S. will not tolerate endless war on the European continent, and has hinted that even Chinese firms could face scrutiny if they continue covert support for Russian logistics and arms. For Trump, the deadline is not symbolic. It is a real threat backed by economic power. His administration believes that if they choke off Russia's global oil markets, Putin's war machine will be forced to grind to a halt. In China, government officials have responded cautiously to the developments. While publicly calling for peace and dialogue, Chinese energy firms continue to purchase discounted Russian oil through long-term contracts. Beijing's position remains ambiguous. It supports diplomatic resolution but refuses to abandon its energy interests. Behind closed doors, Chinese policymakers are reportedly concerned that Trump's secondary sanctions could spill over into China's own trade networks. Yet for now, Beijing is treading a careful line, watching events unfold with calculated silence. In Ukraine, the response to the Putin-Witkoff meeting has been one of deep skepticism. President Volodymyr Zelensky has maintained that Ukraine will not accept any peace agreement that involves territorial concessions or limited ceasefires. Ukrainian officials argue that Russia's proposals such as a pause in airstrikes, are merely delay tactics, not genuine offers for peace. On the ground, the fighting continues with heavy bombardment reported near Kharkiv, Mykolaiv, and parts of Donetsk. Ukrainian forces have fortified key areas, bracing for either a diplomatic breakthrough or another wave of Russian offensives. Ukrainian civilians, increasingly weary and displaced, have not seen meaningful relief. Humanitarian aid is scarce in occupied regions, and missile sirens continue to dominate daily life. For them, talk of peace is welcome, but only if it means full restoration of sovereignty. Meanwhile, in Russia, domestic media has played down the seriousness of the Trump-imposed deadline. State broadcasters have emphasized Putin's calm demeanor during the meeting with Witkoff, portraying the U.S. pressure as yet another example of Western arrogance. However, inside the Kremlin's economic advisory circles, there are real concerns. The ruble has fluctuated in anticipation of sanctions, and Russian energy exporters are reportedly bracing for additional restrictions. There are fears that if India or China reduce their imports due to pressure from Washington, the financial impact could be severe, especially with Europe largely off limits. Within elite circles in Moscow, there is debate. Some advisors see an opportunity for a limited diplomatic maneuver, offering an airstrike moratorium or prisoner exchanges to buy time. Others argue that any sign of compromise would be interpreted as weakness, especially with elections approaching and Putin's image as a strong, unyielding leader being carefully maintained. Across the Atlantic, Trump's strategy hinges on breaking that image. His inner circle believes that Putin, cornered by war fatigue, economic decline, and international isolation, will be forced to make a move, especially if he sees his remaining allies like India or China drift away. Trump's advisors argue that the use of economic force, not battlefield troops, is the key to ending the war. It is a gamble. Weaponize the dollar and the oil trade to bring Putin to the table, or risk prolonging the war indefinitely. As Friday's deadline nears, no one truly knows what will happen. Will Putin offer a meaningful ceasefire? Will Trump unleash a new wave of tariffs that destabilize global markets? Will China intervene behind the scenes to mediate? Or will Ukraine be left to fight alone while major powers engage in power games from afar? For now, the world watches. The silence after the handshake in Moscow is louder than any speech. And the consequences of what happens next, whether peace or escalation, will ripple across continents for years to come.